Joining us now from Iowa is New Hampshire's Republican Governor Chris Sununu. Governor Sununu, we see these latest charges from Jack Smith. The allegations here are pretty brazen in terms of allegedly destroying evidence. How is it that so few Republicans are expressing concerns about this?
Well, it's kind of the boy who cried wolf, right? I mean, we've seen the indictments 1, 2, 3 times. That we expect more to come. The average voter right now just considers them all to be politically driven, and whether that was the intention of the Department of Justice or not, they're allowing Donald Trump to play this victim card very, very well. But ultimately, it doesn't pan out. 6 months from now, it's going to be a very different story. I think the reality is that Donald Trump cannot actually win the votes in November of 24. He can get the nomination, but he can't actually close the deal against Biden. So if you're going to support Trump, you're going to hand it to the Biden and Kamala Harris administration. That is not a good thing. And that's why I think a lot of these other candidates are going to have an opportunity to surge. We're going to narrow that field down. It's not going to be 13 people going into Iowa and New Hampshire by any means. And then definitely by Super Tuesday, I think it's a one-on-one race, and the former president loses. I mean, that's just how the math is ultimately going to play out, because the majority of Republicans don't want Donald Trump. If you look at the polls, he's under 40% in New Hampshire. He's at about 42, 41% here in Iowa, which I'm visiting. I'm the governor of New Hampshire, not Iowa. But so when you look at that, it's not what he has, it's what he doesn't have, right? And again, in the next 6 months, it's only going to get worse.
All right, so you decided not to run for president, but you are also dedicating yourself to ensuring that the Republicans nominate somebody else, somebody not named Trump. What are you hearing in Iowa? You were there at the Lincoln Day dinner with all the candidates out there. Trump seemed to get a warm reception, at least from what we saw. What were you hearing from Republicans?
Well, Trump got a warm reception, but it was without a doubt. And I think anybody in that room would tell you it was the worst speech. It was the worst 10 minutes. He came out. He read from a binder. He didn't look up. He didn't smile. It was an absolute dead speech. And this is not the Donald Trump of 2016. Don't fool yourself. And as more and more folks realize that, he doesn't have the energy. He doesn't have the fastball. He basically is droning on for 90 minutes on his long-form speeches about his legal battles, as opposed to talking about the future of this country, solving the problems of this country, which is what all the other candidates are doing. So at some point, look, Ever see a soap opera? They get kind of boring. The only thing worse is the rerun of a soap opera, and that's what he's bringing, a lot of drama to the table. The other candidates are doing well. I think Vivek had a very strong speech. I think Tim Scott, Doug Burgum really connected with folks on kind of that small town feel. He's a guy that grew up in a small town on a small farm that connected with a lot of folks. So a lot of the other candidates are showing something. I get to give DeSantis a lot of credit. I think he came out early. He took his 10 minutes and didn't drone on, but really got the crowd fired up. So some of these candidates are coming with it, to be sure.
And as you know, the polls consistently have Trump with that huge lead. I mean, one of the latest, Monmouth University, not only has Trump at the top, with a nearly 30-point lead, but also the candidates that are actually taking him on, directly taking him on, are at the bottom. I mean, what is it going to take? What's it going to take to change that dynamic?
So a couple things. He is an incumbent president. So anyone who thinks that he wouldn't be at the top, of course he was going to be at the top. He's got the name ID, the recognition, all of that. Again, the fact that the majority of Republicans clearly don't want him, that's an opportunity. And then it's about galvanizing. That's what it takes. These candidates got to find out who's the best of the others, so to say. But they're all quality candidates. They all bring something a little different to the table. I think you'll see 3 or 4 of the 12 or 13 that don't even make the first debate, maybe 5. I think you'll see 3 or 4 stuck in low single digits in late October, November, and there'll be a lot of pressure for them to drop. I think you'll see 4 or 5, maybe 6 come into Iowa, 3 or 4, 5 maybe come into New Hampshire, and then everything kind of falls from there and you're down to a one-on-one race. And that's the Iowa-New Hampshire opportunity to really filter things out. This is where the conversations are happening, where voters are getting a lot of one-on-one contact, and I think that's the opportunity for the Republican Party.
If Trump ends up winning the nomination, will you support this no labels effort to have a third-party candidate?
No, look, look, I'm going to make sure Trump isn't the candidate. I know No Labels is doing their thing. It's an interesting opportunity, given 70% of America, not just Republicans, but America doesn't want Trump or Biden, right? They don't want either of them on the ballot. So there's an amazing, you call them politically homeless, right? They don't have a political home, anyone to go to, and that's the void that I think this No Labels thing would be trying to fill. So
but you don't see yourself supporting. But you don't see yourself supporting that effort, even if Trump's the nominee.
The Republican nominee is not going to be Donald Trump, and I'll be supporting that individual.
Okay, before you go, I got to ask you, Kevin McCarthy is raising the possibility of an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. What do you think? Is that where Republicans in Congress should be dedicating their efforts right now to trying to impeach Biden?
No. Look, I think the accusations against Biden, Hunter, and President Biden are very real. They have to play out in court. We have to find out what all the evidence is. Nobody even knows any of that, right? So if they're found guilty of something, that opens up a whole different story, because we're talking potential bribery. That's an incredibly serious accusation. And so therefore, if found guilty, yeah, I think Congress should definitely take something up. But I think they're really, really far from really figuring out what the realities there are. But those are very serious accusations that have to be followed up for sure. But look, America's got amazing problems around mental health, around the opioid crisis, fighting to secure the border, having somebody in Washington, D.C. have some fiscal sanity, because even Republicans don't do a very good job of that lately. Really things that really impact everyday lives of Americans. And I'd rather have them focus on those issues. And if the guilty verdict comes out of the Bidens and comes to bear, they can take it up at the appropriate time.
Right now, a lot of allegations, very few proven allegations. Governor Sununu, thank you for joining us.
You bet.